Now that I'm editing videos and multitasking on my computer a lot more, I've been in the market for a computer peripheral to increase my productivity. I wanted to enable quick access to my most used functions, whether to launch programs or use shortcuts within those programs. Earlier this year, while researching options, I came across worklouder and their Creator Micro mini keyboard, and it's been awesome. The worklouder Creator Micro is my favourite piece of computer kit right now. It's a tiny keyboard connected to my PC that enables me to work faster and do the things I want to do with less effort. The way it works is that I can program different shortcuts and functions via macros or small programmable instructions, so I only need to press a single key. The ultimate aim is to streamline the way you interact with your computer or most used programs. The convenience ultimately increases the speed in which you can accomplish tasks and in turn increases your productivity. I've been a fan of mechanical keyboards for a while, like every self-respecting PC owner who builds their own computers. However, my knowledge of the space was very superficial. It was only after delving into the vibrant community of mechanical keyboard enthusiasts that I came across worklouder and their first product, the Creator Board. The quick description of the Creator Board is that it's an ortholinear modular keyboard that you can customize in various and innumerable ways. According to worklouder, it's specifically designed for content creators working in digital mediums such as video, illustration and design. However, I'm sure it's found an audience outside of that group too. The Creator Micro is the smaller cousin offshoot device that uses the same basic design and engineering language as the larger keyboard. However, the Creator features only 16 keys and buttons and is designed to complement a full keyboard on your desktop. Ultimately, the Creator Micro is meant to be a companion peripheral. It's the perfect device for creating a way to quickly control your most common computer functions but without the need for a larger Creator board. The ability to customize the Creator Micro starts at the point of purchase. You can buy the Micro with plain, unmarked keycaps. But worklouder also has the option to buy additional sets of keycaps with different icons pre-printed on them. I opted for the Work Icon Pack because I had a vision for how I wanted my Micro to work with Premiere Pro for video editing. However, as I'll explain later in this video, having blank keys isn't as strange as it might seem when you realise just how versatile the device is. The Micro comes with the blank keycaps pre-installed, but with little effort you can prise off the existing caps and replace them with the 60 different alternatives that come in the Work Icon Pack. I already knew that I had specific functions and shortcuts that I use on a daily basis. If you're like me, you'll find it makes sense to plan out which keys are going to perform what actions and how you'd like to arrange them on your Micro before swapping out the keycaps. Ideally, I would have used a keycap removal tool, but I've long since misplaced it, so I resorted to using the I/O shield covers from my PC case to help me gently wrestle them off. You have to work from the outside inwards for ease of access, as the keycaps on the edge of the cluster block the access to the inner keys somewhat. Worklouder also supplies an alternative translucent knob to replace the plain white one already installed. The knob actually gave me the most trouble and I had to apply a fair bit of force to pull it off. On handling the Micro, the first thing that I liked was the heavy, solid build. It feels weighty in your hands, which is really important when it comes to anything that sits on your desk. The extra weight combined with the rubberized base means it's firmly and satisfyingly planted and it doesn't move while using it. The one thing that is missing from the package is the USB-C cable to connect it to your computer. The Micro doesn't come with one. Depending on the age of your computer or motherboard, you'll need to invest in a USB-C to USB-C or USB-C to USB-A cable. The keys themselves are very fun to press, and like all great mechanical keyboards, the travel and clickiness is very satisfying, inviting you to tap them all the time. The small barrel key on the top left corner is also fun to play with and features a switch when you press it in. The same goes for the knob, although as I discuss later, while the feedback is satisfying, the increments between positions could do with being a bit more refined. Also, I'd like for worklouder to release a different version of the knob as it would improve the utility a bit more, but more on my thoughts about the knob later. The two additional buttons are a bit less obvious but very important for maximising the utility of the Micro. The area occupied by the M on the bottom left hand corner and the hash design on the bottom right hand corner are both capacitive buttons. By default, the right capacitive button navigates between the layers of the interface on the Micro. This enables every key on the Micro to be programmed to have up to 4 different functions. Tapping the button will activate the 4 different states as indicated by the tiny white LEDs. The first state is the LEDs are off, indicating that you're on layer 0. Tapping again switches on layer 1 and the first LED. Tapping again switches to layer 2 and so on until you reach layer 3 before coming back round to layer 0 again. It may seem a little confusing to people like myself outside of the community who aren't used to programming their keyboards. However, in simple terms, using one example, you can select layer 0, program a key to perform a function such as launch a program like Task Manager. Then, selecting layer 1, you can program the same key to do a different function, such as playing or pausing playback on your media player. All you have to do is switch between the layers to access the different functions. As you can imagine, that means using the 16 keys and switches and the 4 different layers gives you a lot of different programmable combinations. Programming that functionality might sound daunting to newcomers, but the Micro uses a visual programming software called VIA to make it happen. As mentioned in the last chapter, VIA is a software that enables you to program the functions of every key on the Micro on all 4 layers. When you download and open VIA, the software is split into 4 main areas. The top left is the main navigation to the key map, where you can assign functions from a standard keyboard. You choose each of the keys on the Micro by clicking on the virtual representation on the screen, and then selecting the key from the section below. The second area is where you create macros, which are a set of keystroke instructions. You can then assign a macro to assign to a key on the Micro. One example is Control-Shift-Escape to launch Task Manager. Once saved, the macros are available to assign to keys on the bottom left section. Don't worry if the macros and key codes seem quite complex. The worklouder team have created some tutorials to get you started on how to write your first instructions. It'll give you the basics to get the most out of your Micro. Plus, the worklouder Discord community has some great people who are willing to answer questions for less experienced users. The next section enables you to save and load your setups. It will save a file to your computer which can be accessed later. The last section, called Lighting, includes all your controls for RGB lights in the acrylic border on the Micro. Here you can adjust the brightness, effect, speed and colour of the border to suit your taste. The key RGB lights are managed using another method which I'll cover off later in this video. The section below the main navigation includes all the key functions that you can transpose to the virtual Micro in VIA, broken out into the main types of keys you'll want to use. The basic section includes all the standard buttons on the average keyboard. Media includes the main controls you want to use with a media player. The macro section is where you can access the 15 different instructions you create using key codes. The layer section covers controls to move and toggle between the 4 layers on the Micro. This might sound odd at first, but as you discover certain operations on your PC you want to streamline, the layers will give you more ways to store those instructions. The special section includes keys and buttons that are outside of the usual array of keyboard keys, including controls you'll find on your mouse. And as mentioned, the RGB lighting for the key controls aren't controlled via the lighting section. Instead, the RGB controls are located here in QMK lighting and also the custom section. You can transpose your key lighting controls to the keys on the Micro. You'll find all the options to control the brightness, hue, mode, speed and more. The final section is called Other and includes all the rarer key controls such as function keys. In this part of the video I wanted to share my own personal setup, but will endeavour to create another separate video on how I created the key codes and macros. I realised halfway through making this video I could make it double the length just by including step-by-step walkthroughs for each of my macros when I don't think anybody wants to sit through them here. So, as a preview to that video, here is my current setup. For now I've set up the barrel switch to scroll, but originally I had it set up as my system volume control. However, I found I missed the old dial that I had and transferred the control to the knob instead. I did have the idea of using the knob to control my timeline zoom in Premiere Pro, but found that the first zoom increments were too big between positions of the knob. The second reason I don't use the knob was my interaction with the timeline when editing is actually using Alt as a modifier, plus moving through the timeline with the mouse. There was no real way to include all of that functionality into a single button. So for now, the barrel button is just for scrolling and zooming, even if I actually use my mouse wheel most of the time. I think I'll find a use for it in the future. I listen to a lot of music and YouTube videos while I work, so I wanted to include some media controls. The first set of keys on the top is my play/pause button, and then I map next track to the second button. I don't often go backwards in my playlist, but I do find I want to skip songs or videos. In the next row, I've created 3 keys that launch the main software I use all the time. The first key launches Premiere Pro, the second launches Audition for recording my voiceovers, and the third button launches Photoshop, which I use for creating thumbnails for my videos. Interestingly, there's a slight delay when using the keys rather than using the shortcut in my start menu. It's a little disconcerting at first, but I've become used to the extra time it takes to launch programs. The next button and the one below control how I navigate between my main workspaces in Premiere Pro. I spend the most time editing and creating text or adding motion graphics from my library. In Premiere Pro there is a keyboard shortcut, but it requires 3 different keys and you're unable to reassign the numbers to match your own priority. To that end, I find it more convenient to use the Creator Micro. On the next row, the first button is programmed to switch between my tabs in Chrome. I'm not as egregious as some users, but I do tend to keep a few tabs open at the same time. My shortcut now gives me a quick way to switch between tabs at a moment's notice. The button after that I use to swap between open software. While I do like arranging my desktop using Windows 11, sometimes I want 2 programs at full screen. This is especially true of Premiere Pro, which utilises as much screen real estate as you devote to it, which helps working with the video timeline. I also find that having Audition in full screen means that editing audio is much easier, as you can see the whole waveform. To that end, I wanted to further streamline the keyboard shortcut so that I only have to use one button instead of Alt-Tab. However, using the Micro, one missing feature is the ability to cycle through open programs, but I'm still researching the correct key code to enable this if it exists. My next key is my Windows 11 password key. If you're interested, you can program a string of characters into a single button. I actually put the password on one layer and then the other layer simply locks my computer when I need to step away from my desk. For now, the bottom 2 keys enable me to cycle through my different desktops. I have 3 set up to help compartmentalize my personal life and work. Desktop 1 is for my personal things like email or gaming. Desktop 2 is for my editing because I usually run Premiere Pro in full screen. Then Desktop 3 is for my other work related stuff such as Audition and Photoshop. Finally, I'm tinkering with what I want the first capacitive button to do, but I've currently got it set to control the RGB lighting options. And then for the other capacitive button, I've kept it as the main way to operate my layers because of the convenience of the 3 LED lights. They give me a quick visual reference to let me know which layer I'm using. I'm still in the early days of owning the Creator Micro, and I'm only really just starting to bend my head around VIA. I have many open slots left on the different layers to use, and I'm excited by the challenge to increase my knowledge and the utility of the Micro. Overall, I'm super impressed with the Micro. As I mentioned at the start of my video, I was really keen to find a peripheral like this for productivity reasons. The reality of owning the Micro has met and exceeded my expectations. The feel and weight of the device exudes quality. I was a little bit worried it might feel lightweight and even a bit flimsy, but the Micro is sturdy and really nicely engineered. The keys and knobs are all very tactile and will appeal to keyboard enthusiasts. The white switches I chose are very clicky and the travel is satisfying as you depress each one. Buyers will also have the option to use brown switches should you want a softer experience with less clickiness. There are a couple of areas for improvement in my opinion, but this has come down to my personal preference. Personally, I would love a silicone or rubber or soft plastic version of the knob, and I'd like the knob to have fewer increments between positions to really enable refined control. It's not such an issue for volume control as I have it set up, but for controlling Premiere Pro's timeline, the increments feel a little too aggressive, making the user interface jump too much. The other thing I'd love is more keycap sets that better match the functions and features I want the keys to represent. I bought the work icon pack, but I found I made some compromises on the keycaps I chose to match what I want the functions to do. Again, it's highly subjective as everyone is going to be different. However, they are the only 2 minor negatives for me. I personally love this device, and while I'm not quite ready for an ortholinear keyboard, owning and using the Creator Micro has definitely made me consider buying the device's big brother, the Creator Board. Thanks for watching, and as always, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more videos on the connected home and personal technology.